everybody, and welcome to episode number 18 of the Clarity Project podcast. I am your host, 𝗦𝗢𝗖𝗦. For today's episode of the Clarity Project podcast, I'm going to get my notebook. So here's the notebook. I'm going to read the notes in it, and I'm going to reflect on my notes afterwards. If you already know that, then you probably are a regular here in the show, which I will thank you, right? Thank you for being a regular. Thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting. That being said, let me read the first note, and I'm going to reflect on it afterwards. So the first note is, by the way, note is from April 14, 2023. This first note doesn't look like a note. It looks like a bullet point of some sort, right? Is that what you call it? Bullet point? Yeah, that's what it looks like. So it has 2 points, right? The first one is non-disabled, and the second one is able-bodied. This probably is talking about the distinction between the two. What's the difference between able-bodied versus non-disabled? Or at least, what do you think the opposite of being disabled is, right? Or what is the opposite of disability? Right? If you think that the opposite of disability is non-disabled, then you probably see disabilities as coming from the mind, body, or both. Now, if you see the opposite of disabilities as being called as able-bodied, meaning, oh, he doesn't have a disability, he's able-bodied, it means that you see disabilities as only being about the body. Let me repeat that. If you think that another person is a non-disabled person, then you probably think that that person doesn't have any disabilities in terms of his mind or his body or both. Now, if you see that someone is able-bodied, it means that you probably see that person as not having any disability in terms of the body. Probably they also don't have any disabilities in sort of the mind, or maybe they have a disability in terms of the mind, and that's why you call them able-bodied. Or probably these two things are interchangeable. I don't know. I don't really know. If I have to look back, if I have to guess and why I put this into my notes, I really can't give you like a real clear answer. I forgot on why I found this noteworthy, but I guess it's a nice little tidbit to be able to know. That being said, what's more interesting is the next passage, right? It looks like an adage of some sort, and it goes out like this, right? Once we age, we all become disabled. Let me repeat that. Once we age, we all become disabled. Now that's really deep because probably, I don't know how old you are right now, but if I have to guess, and if you're an able-bodied person, and if you're not disabled, and if you're not disabled or you're able-bodied person, and that's really great news for you, right? If you have perfect vision, if all of your body functions are okay, in terms of the mind, you're also okay, you don't have any problems with that, and that's great news. But here's the thing, man. Once we age, we all become disabled, right? We start to lose our vision. We start to get blurry vision. We are not as agile. We don't have as much energy. We lose vigor in all sorts of these things, right? We are not as energetic. When it comes to our body and our muscles, we lose strength. Probably we lose flexibility. In our mind, we're not as sharp, right? We're not as smart, or we forget things. We become forgetful. All of these things contribute to how we could be likened to someone who's disabled, which is an inevitable truth in life. Now, that being said, if you are someone who still gets all of these things, if you are someone who still has the strength, who still has the flexibility, still has the power, still has the energy, or probably still has enough, right, when compared to someone who doesn't have it, or probably someone who's struggling with it, then you probably have to be a little bit more grateful for what you have right now. You probably have to be more mindful of the kind of strength, the kind of flexibility, the kind of sharpness of mind that you have now. Your youth, you have to be more grateful for the things that you have now, and you should not take them for granted because, well, once we become old, we all become disabled people. So another note that I like to be able to point out is that if you're young right now, relatively young, or if you still pretty much have all of these things, that you're able-bodied or you're non-disabled person, and you get the benefit of all of these things, and you're not yet old, you have to be a little bit more grateful, right? And at the same time, you have to not take them for granted, because the youth that you have now, the energy that you have now, the sharpness of mind that you have now, that to you is like, it's normal life, right? It's daily life, you have it. And so what? It doesn't seem to be something that you should be thinking too much about because, well, you have it right now. But here's the thing. A few decades from now, a couple of decades from now, you're going to lose them one by one, right? Probably one earlier than others and probably some later than others. But the bottom line is, by the time that you get old, once you get older, we all become disabled people. So you start to lose your vision. Probably you start to lose your hearing. You lose agileness. You become forgetful. You become someone who's not as sharp. You become old in general, right? You're not able to do the things that you used to do, or at least you were used to be able to do when you were young. And if you're young right now, take that as a lesson. Take that as a point of lesson for how you're going to live the following days of your life. Because this is not forever, right? If you're spending your time not doing anything, then you're going to be bored. You're going to be surprised. By the time that you get old, you're not going to be able to do the things that you wanted to do. By the time that you become old, it's not that you don't want to do it. It's that your body won't let you to. That's the difference. So now that your body is able, now that your body can do it, I guess it just makes sense for you to do the things that you've always wanted to do. Now that you are an able-bodied person, now that you are a non-disabled person, do it. Don't wait. And as I'm saying that, I'm reminded of a adage, aphorism, maxim, whatever. I don't really know what to call it, but regardless of whatever it is called, this is from Seneca, one of the ancient philosophers of the past. And he said, or at least it is along the lines of, we have enough time, right? We always think that we don't have enough time, but the truth is we have enough time. It's not that we have very few time in this world. It's that we waste so much of it. Let me repeat that. It's not that we have so less or we have less time in the world or we don't have enough time in the world. It's that we waste so much of it. And while we're at it, while we're at the subject, let me also talk about another ancient philosopher, which is Socrates. At the time of Socrates' death, when he was being executed, he was old, yeah, for the time, because probably the expected mortality rate or something, like you're going to die or something like that. He's probably in his 60s or 70s. Is practically an old man even today. And at that point in time, he already knew that he's going to be executed and he's going to be poisoned, right? He already knew that there was a poison in his drink or something like that. But he chose to drink the poison because it is a better cause, right? A better lesson for his students, to be able to give that to his students as a final lesson, as the ultimate lesson of all in terms of philosophy. He drank it even though he knew that there is poison in it. But if you really try to make sense of it, it does make sense, because at that time he was already 70. He already talked about how being 70, the next few years of his life is probably not going to be that eventful anyways. The next few decades of his life is lucky if he's still alive. It's not going to be that happy, or it's not going to be that enjoyable, because, well, 70, you're going to be 80, you're going to be 90 years old. Just imagine the kind of life that you're going to have. Of course, this is in ancient times. There's no yet modern medicine as we know today. There's no antibiotics. There's no painkillers even. So probably you would also try to say goodbye to your friends one by one. You probably have to say goodbye to them because, well, some of them is going to die, and the people that you love and the people that you care about, the people that you always talk to, one by one, you would have to say goodbye to them. And at the same time, the things that you love in terms of the culture, in terms of the norms, in terms of how people live their life, it's like you are living in a wrong generation, and you end up being bitter about life. You end up seeing how, these young folks, these young people, they don't know, right? They don't have it. We had it better. We had it best in our time, right? We had it better than them. They don't even know. They don't have any idea, or something like that, right? Yeah. That being said, I think that's the podcast. And so if you watch this as a whole, and if you watch this in snippets, I like to be able to thank you, and I'll see you again in the next one. And also, by the way, did that make sense? Then follow for more. Thank you. Bye-bye.